Good morning, everyone, and thanks. Welcome to M365 May, and thanks for joining us for the first of our 5 mini workshops on coming out the other side. It's a workshop on designing the post-lockdown organisation. I'm Amanda Broomhall, one half of ABCW. ABCW is a digital consultancy, a partnership between myself and Cairo Walker. Cairo and I will be co-presenting today and for the rest of these workshops. I'm going to start today by telling you a COVID lockdown story from one of my clients. This story is an example of COVID-inspired innovation. It's about a speech therapist working in a community health service in outer Melbourne, who, due to social distancing, was unable to meet with her clients face-to-face. In one particular case, rather than risking the client falling behind in their therapy, the speech therapist agreed to run a Zoom session with the client and the client's family. She took the opportunity of the lockdown to run the session at 8 a.m. while the family were having their breakfast. This is not something she would normally have ever done. The outcome was that not only did the therapy session go ahead, but by running it over the breakfast, she was able to do observational research at the same time, providing a number of insights on how the client interacted with the rest of the family. Insights that would not have been possible in her pre-lockdown world. As we know, necessity is indeed the mother of invention. And I'm sure every one of you tuned in today has similar stories about the lockdown period. We know that COVID lockdown restrictions will be relaxed at some point, but we don't know when. But we are already talking about the new normal, new ways of working post-lockdown. However, the reality is that any new normal will be specific, not only to each industry, but to each individual organisation. It's important to remember. The chaos and frantic nature of the past few months have forced organisations to make big decisions in brutally fast timeframes. So now it's time to step back, evaluate what's occurred, assess the decisions made, and reflect on what the lessons are that will tell us about what matters most to our organisations. By doing this, we can make informed decisions about how the organisation needs to operate moving forward. We have another client who is at that point right now. They've already started the planning process and are exploring the shape of their organisation and what it will look like once they are out the other side. They are reviewing what has happened and asking themselves a number of questions about the future, including, regardless of what the government says, when will their people actually be ready to come back to work in an office environment? There may be some hesitation. Other staff may want to permanently change their working arrangements, working from home a couple of days a week, staying home with the puppy dogs. What are the implications of this? And if the organisation does head in that direction, what policies are going to need to change to enable this to happen? What about the HR policies? What about OH&S and the risk management process? At ABCW, we've created a simple 4-step framework for thinking strategically about the changes that have occurred, those changes still happening, and more importantly, about the implications for your organisation. So at this point, I'd like to hand over and at the same time introduce you to Cairo Walker, who's the other half of ABCW, who will tell you more about the framework. Over to you, Cairo.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So this COVID-19 framework that we've created is time-bound, but it's not time-bound by the calendar, rather the various stages of lockdown and moving into this period that's now being widely talked about as the new normal. So the first phase that we want to look at, and the first phase in this framework, is pre-pandemic. In order to establish a baseline for planning, we need to take a quick look at where you were before, then move into this current period that they were in. So where are we now in lockdown? Where are you in lockdown? We take a look at the lockdown experience for your business, your people, and your customers, including the small miracles that most of us have achieved. In step 3, we look forward and plan for coming out of lockdown. And finally, we support the transition to the new normal, and we look at the shape of that and what it will be, and it will be different for everyone. So each week over the month of May, we will go through a single step in the process. The sessions will be short, 10 to 15 minutes, and super practical. We've developed a set of tools for your use and set homework each session. In this way, you'll get to use the tools, you'll get to see how they work, and you can ask any questions along the way for clarification. At the end, if you follow along and do the homework, you'll have all your plans in place for coming out the other side of the COVID-19 pandemic. So let's take a bit of a look at the steps in a little bit more detail. So the first step, and the one with the least amount of homework, involves looking at your organisation before the COVID-19 pandemic took hold. This initial step will help to create a baseline and show the direction for future activities. For those of you who have an up-to-date organisational strategy, this step will be pretty simple. All you'll need to do is pull it out, dust it off, and you'll be good to go. If you have a department level strategy to support the organisational one, even better, grab that and bring that along as well. For those of you who don't have either, and for the overachievers amongst us, create a SWOT analysis and bring that along to the session. So a SWOT analysis is pretty easy to make, even if it's not within your usual remit. We often go into organisations that don't have a strategy or that have one that is out of date. And in order to create a digital workplace strategy or a digital workplace roadmap or operational plan, we need an organisational one first. In this case, we will create a SWOT analysis for the organisation. We often do it in isolation and we present it as a straw man to senior leaders for comment, but equally, in your roles, you could get one or more senior people in your organisation together and create this. You could actually facilitate the creation of it. Okay, so once you've done all of that, the next step at this phase is to get your organisational and departments measures and targets together. So whether these are sales targets, whether you're focused on service delivery, overheads, or any combination, we want you to pull these together so that we can see how you are tracking against your targets over the 12-month period, February 2019 to February 2020 or thereabouts. Remember, for all of the above at this step, we're really just interested in creating a view to see what things were like just before you went into lockdown. So we're not interested in looking at any kind of plans or assessment of where you are now, other than just to get that that really good view just before you went into this. Next stage in the process is to actually look at the lockdown experience and what it's been like. I've been amazed at what organisations achieved in the first week or two of lockdown. Amanda and I worked with organisations that have gone from having no collaboration tools in place with no ability to support remote workers at all, to getting that remote access up and running, the tool set in place, and moving their entire staff to work from their homes in a matter of a single week. It's been incredible. We've heard some fantastic stories and anecdotes from people working from home. One thing is for sure, across all our clients, that the pets, and in particular the dogs, are loving lockdown. At this step, supported by our toolset, you'll research the lockdown experience in your organisation. There are many different techniques for carrying out research, and we'll provide a range of these and help you by also sharing research frameworks and toolsets. We'll help with things like we'll create some typical survey questions for you to use. We'll show you when to do research across the whole organisation or when to take only a targeted section. And we'll talk through conducting one-on-one interviews remotely, which we've just come out of that phase with a number of clients. We will also share with you some of the rich stories we've collected from our clients through this period. I'm not given to the dramatic, but this period will certainly be one to define a new direction for humans, and here we all are about to go out and document it. I think it's an amazing opportunity. Just this morning, The Atlantic suggested that it's time to shorten the working week globally, which is something I've been saying we should be doing for about 30 years. The second step, which will take place in the next week, is to look at all of that fantastic baseline material that you've gathered. And with your research complete, we want to start making sense of everything. Again, we've developed some really useful tools to help make sense of research and to hone in on the areas and people and roles who have coped the best and also those that have coped the worst during lockdown. This will then enable you to use the superstars and model programs based on their experience, as well as establishing programs for those in the most need. So with all of that research completed and the understanding of the baseline, we can now start looking at turning all that learning into action. So at step 3, now that we have a view of the organisation and what has occurred from the remarkable to the ridiculous, we're going to get into some actual planning. So there are things that have occurred that you'll want to keep. There'll be process hacks that you'll want to move to BAU as is, or maybe you'll need to adjust them. Most organisations are predicting that staff will want and maybe even expect to work from home more, maybe all of the time. What will your position be on this? What will need to be adjusted as a result? Will it be your policies and procedures? Will it be your budgets? Who is going to foot the cost of remote working? Whilst there will be a reduction in corporate building footprint, infrastructure and cost, how do we ensure that this cost isn't unwittingly passed along to employees? What will your physical and social environment work like? Do you have a new emerging business model? And again, I've seen some amazing things in terms of these business models emerging. Amanda is a bit of a foodie and a beyond exceptional cook. So should she ever ask you to dinner, cancel your plans and go. So Amanda decided to support a local business in lockdown and order a gourmet dinner for herself and her partner. Going online, Amanda found that while she could have a meal delivered or cooked and ready to go that just required plating up, there was another option. So tonight, Amanda is instead cooking her own top restaurant meal with the chef in her kitchen, virtually of course. So yesterday, all the ingredients arrived, all chopped up, ready to go. It came complete with crockery and cutlery. And the 2 lots of friends who would normally come to dinner on a Friday night have ordered the same experience. So everyone will be cooking and eating together online. Another client is working on a week on, week off experience for returning to work. So having half the office on a 1-week roster and half on the other. And we've already seen that in the early days at some of the airports. So again, with our tools and support, we will guide you through the planning process as well as looking at what you know. We share tools for helping you establish and deal with the known unknowns. From here, we are moving from reactive to proactive, hopefully not just as we come out of lockdown, but also ongoing. So the final phase is the move to what has become being widely talked about as new normal. So the final step involves putting all the sort of supporting plans in place for when we move out of lockdown. This is about ensuring that you're ready to implement, that your budgets are established and in place, that you have your resourcing sorted, and that you have plans for managing the shift, including educational and training programs, communication plans, and all that good stuff. So just a quick look at how each session will go. Like this one, super short, pithy sessions, and each one's focused on a single step. Amanda and I will take you through the topic area and share the tool with you. As I said, sessions will be super practical, and we've been pretty clever as to how we've gone about doing this because we're making you do all the work. Each week you'll have homework that will involve taking the learnings and the tool set presented and completing the task and steps outlined at that session. Don't worry if the week gets away from you and you can't get the task done. Come along to the next session and get the next set of learnings. By the end of the month, if you carry out the activity set each week, you'll have full plans in place for moving out of lockdown. You'll also have a full methodology on hand to ensure that you are operating in a proactive manner moving forward. And I'm going to hand over to Amanda now, who's going to give you the first week's homework and wrap up our first session.
Thanks, Cairo. So just to reiterate, the new normal is going to be different from what we knew before, and there'll be impacts across the organisation. As Cairo mentioned, our business models may change. There'll be impacts to all of the departments within our organisations. It'll certainly impact HR. It'll impact how IT functions are delivered, and it may even be that we need to change the way we manage people in our organisations. So now's the time to be prepared. So just to be clear in terms of who this framework is for, we believe it's for everyone. The exercise will bring you value, even if you're not at a senior level. If you're uncomfortable doing this exercise yourself, consider grabbing a senior manager or two and get them involved and even bring them along to these sessions. So bring them along next week. So the homework for next week is in preparation for the research phase. As Cairo mentioned, we want you to do a little bit of preparation by grabbing that strategic information that you have that will give you an overview of where your organisation was before we went into this crazy period. Whether they're strategic plans, a SWOT analysis, sales figures, whatever, grab them, have a quick look at them and get them ready for next session, because they'll be really important in terms of just really having a baseline and understanding where the organisation has moved to. Okay, and then finally, just the wrap up in terms of there'll be a slide. If you can't see the slide, we will leave details. Don't be shy during the week. We're really keen to hear from you if you are getting involved in this process. Get in touch with us during the week. Ask us questions, get some more information, or even just share some of the stories about how your organisation has been impacted by all of this. You can contact us through LinkedIn or our mobile numbers. There should also be an email address, or get us on our website. As I say, if you can't see the slide that has all that information, because I can't, we will make sure that is made available to you straight after this session. So, firstly, okay, there it is. That looks like all the information. Hopefully you can see that now. I think we've run a little over time, so quite happy if anyone's got some questions, that's great. Otherwise, we'll move on, and I'll say thanks very much for listening. See you same time next week. Enjoy the rest of your M365 May Day. Thank you.